together, turn the clocks forward on flavor. Dave is going to give you that tail of the tape that you love so very much.
That's right, guys. It comes in an 8-pack with 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. And guys, it's only 110 calories, just like us.
Fuck the time change, but we want to say congratulations, Lex Luger, announced for the WWE Hall of Fame 2025. Great video showing him do a little yoga with DDP, and then Cody Rhodes walks into the room. This is a little overdue because, I mean, Lex Luger, one of the greatest to come out of WCW, you know, he was hit or miss in the WWF, and, you know, his reputation was hurt for years after RIP Miss Elizabeth and just his, you know, noted attitude problems. Dave, what do you think about this induction?
Happy for Lex. Lex is a guy I really liked growing up. I saw him in Florida wrestling for the first time, actually, growing up. I remember thinking, like, oh, this guy looks, you know, like, even as a small kid, I knew. I'm like, this guy looks like a star. And then, you know, he had his great run in NWA/WCW. And that's where I really liked Lex in the beginning of his career, his U.S. championship run. I've talked about this before, you know, beating guys like Stan Hansen, Michael Hayes, you know, great heel run. I was watching a match, actually, old school with Lex the other day. I want to say from maybe 89 with a young flying Brian Pillman, where Luger was the heel and they were tearing it up together. Luger, you know, he was a quality wrestler. And then I think we've heard about this discussed on other podcast stuff too. He had that motorcycle accident, and that's when he was a little gun shy and things started to slow down. But, you know, you can't deny the success. Former WCW heavyweight champion, beat Hulk Hogan on a Nitro. They didn't really do anything else with that. He didn't have the greatest WWF run at the time, but, you know, he did main event some pay-per-views. And at the end of the day, the guy had a great career.
Yeah, the motorcycle accident put that famous steel plate in his forearm. And later on, it was a spinal stroke that really kind of has kept him in a wheelchair for, you know, most of his post-career. One thing to really note about Lex is, you know, he was notorious for the attitude back in the day, but if you follow Lex on social media, I don't know if there's somebody that has turned their worldview around more than him. And if you want a good dose of positivity, just check out Lex Luger's social media. And we are going to go from a Hall of Fame induction that was official to one that, up until the Lex Luger thing was announced, I didn't know this wasn't official, but there was word that the Natural Disasters were going into the Hall of Fame. I was excited for this because John Tenta, long overdue, Fred Ottman as well. But with Fred, you can see it more because his son is a timekeeper, because Cody is the world champion. Do you think they will make it in this year? Was this news that got leaked ahead of time?
I think the first thing I saw it from was Fred had shared it on his Facebook page or Facebook account. And I think it came from like Wrestle Votes Facebook page or something like that. And that made me a little concerned because Wrestle Votes, I've seen this account like on Twitter, and they notoriously, they do this. It's part of their account. They just put up like these fake headlines or stuff that they want to see for fun. And I'm like, I don't know if it's the same account, but I'm looking at this and I'm like, huh. I'm like, and I'm thinking Fred's an old man, right? So I'm like, I hope this is an official thing. And then I keep looking around and I didn't see it anywhere. And so that kind of bummed me out. But I hope they get in. Everything I can see from just watching Fred on his Facebook and hearing things about him, he just seems like a really genuinely nice guy. So, you know, and John Tenta, I think John Tenta was a very good big man wrestler. You know, he was a main event player for sure. So I hope these guys get in someday. I hope this year.
These guys were a great tag team. And I can't remember where I first saw the thing, but I mean, you'd like to hope. they usually have a variety of acts going into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
So you'd like to hope they're one of them. And speaking of wrestle votes, there's this one motherfucker at work that is always asking me about what's going on with this wrestler, what's going on with that wrestler. And then when I go like, where did you hear that? He goes, I don't know. I saw it somewhere on Facebook. So wrestle votes must be the culprit.
Very possible.
We're going to go on from talking about a couple for a Hall of Fame act, a possible Hall of Fame act. We're going to do a different kind of comparison. And we're going to compare Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Bobby Lashley. I really enjoyed this because, you know, like on the surface, you're like, all right, they're two big, strong athletes. Dr. Death coming from that college wrestling background and football, making his way in. Just a dominant force. And then did Lashley wrestle in college as well? I believe he wrestled in the Army.
Yeah, that was the Navy. So I'm assuming he wrestled in college. You got me wondering, Joe. I'm going to look that up a little bit real quick. But Bobby Lashley had a great amateur career in the military, and then he ended up having an MMA career too, where he wrestled for Bellator.
Bobby Lashley had the legitimate MMA career, and then the pseudo MMA combat sports setup that WWF did cut Dr. Death short. It's a shame because Dr. Death would have been a force in WWE. And it's kind of fair to say that both Lashley and Dr. Death were less successful in WWE than they were elsewhere.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. His mixed martial arts career, he had fought in a few different places, and his overall record was 15-2, by the way. And it says he had some college championships here. So, yeah, Bobby Lashley's legit. Dr. Death was legit. And Dr. Death is one of those guys I wonder, because, I mean, yeah, Brawl for All, whatever, he was much older at that point. I wonder, like, in his prime, if there was, like, a UFC or something, how Dr. Death's one of those guys, like, he might have ended up choosing that as a career. So, yeah, I like this comparison a lot. They're both legit. And they both have wrestling styles that take the legitimacy part of what they do and they incorporate it in that work/shoot kind of style, which I like. Who's the better overall wrestler? For me, I'm probably just a little old school. I like Dr. Death. When we're talking bell to bell, but if you're talking about overall presentation, and it's really funny to say this because he's older now, but I feel like Bobby Lashley has really just upped that game the last couple of years, being with MVP and the Hurt Business and that presentation right now. And he's one of the few guys. Like when I look at AEW right now, we'll talk about them later when we review Revolution or preview Revolution. I was thinking about this today. There's a lot of guys that come to AEW and they seem to be losing some of that star factor right now because the company doesn't feel as hot. That's not Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley looks like a star there right now. So anyway, when it comes to these two, I'm probably a little more partial to Steve Williams. But if I was being honest with myself, I think Bobby Lashley is the better overall wrestler when I take in look and presentation as well.
I think this might be the first time doing a comparison that we are almost opposite. I would put Dr. Death as the better wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And wait, is that what you said?
I'd say he's better bell to bell. Yes, I don't think we're disagreeing on
that. All right,
so
no. I was thinking Lashley was the better wrestler, and Dr. Death was the better overall presentation. Just because, like, he had that aura of being serious, and Dr. Death was even featured in the original MLW. He had, they had him training somebody who was like a tag team partner, mentee type thing. So, like, overall presentation, really like Dr. Death. Lashley in the ring, I've seen a lot of him in TNA. Really enjoyed what he did there. Really liking the Hurt Business, Hurt Syndicate thing because it's almost like a Black Four Horsemen. And if you look at where Lashley and Shelton Benjamin are right now, they just look unstoppable.
I'll say one more thing about Bobby Lashley. Reason why I think he wins this comparison. They hurt people.
Love that. I mean, I don't have a transition for this, but I wanted to talk about WWE 2K25 because this came out on Friday. I have put 11 hours into the game so far,
My
not
man.
nearly as much as I would like to. And first off, the showcase mode is incredible. The showcase mode in 2K games, it's where they kind of follow a certain person or a certain theme, and you play through matches from that. In the past, it's been WrestleMania, it's been John Cena. This year, it is the Bloodline. And it is amazing. You have Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman doing these videos talking between each match. And it's a great way to highlight the match. You've got Solo Sikoa in there as well. Other members of the Bloodline to really highlight these matches. It started off with Yokozuna and Hulk Hogan at King of the Ring. I played that for a while. There is an open world feature called The Island, which is interesting. It's like you can walk around this area and you can go to areas like the Deadlands. I've done a few matches against The Undertaker and interacting with Paul Bearer. You've got the Arcade of Tomorrow where you can meet up with Xavier Woods and you create like your own character to go through that. I haven't dug through the GM. I set up a GM mode to play. I played a little bit of the My Rise career mode. I wanted to play a little bit of each thing to talk about it. And overall, I love the game. I see on social media a lot of people are complaining about the game crashing or having bugs and issues like that. I haven't ran into it, might have crashed on me once. I haven't ran into a lot of things that would make me unhappy with the game. I really enjoy it. Dave, have you seen any commercials for the game? And what are your thoughts just based on what you've seen?
Just from what I've seen from the games and just talking to you, and just seeing some of the old school wrestlers that are involved in this, it looks interesting. It's one of those things that makes me wish I played more video games. And maybe it's, when I move out of my house, start living with a bunch of kids, I might have to buy this so I can get away from time to time. This might be some good man stuff to do in my time.
I think it was me being able to unlock Peter Maivia because you play a match, Peter Maivia against George Animal Steel,
awesome.
That really popped Dave because he's a fan of those old school wrestlers. And if you want to talk old school wrestlers, Dave had a comparison about former WWF champs that, I mean, I think our pick is going to be pretty straightforward only because we didn't see a ton of the other wrestler. And Dave, why is Bob Backlund your pick?
Bob Backlund's one of the best wrestlers of all time. Doesn't get his due sometimes. Bob I did this one because we don't always do a lot of 70s attractions and stuff like that. And Bruno was the late 60s, 70s, all 70s attraction. And Backlund was 70s, early 80s attraction before Hogan. These were the two major stars before Hulk Hogan. And if we're talking about, better wrestler overall, I got to give it to Backlund. And here's the thing. Neither one of these guys, especially at these periods, are overly flashy. You know what I mean? Bruno's going to be a better brawler, no doubt. And he's going to have that heated comeback. But I got to give it to Bob at the end of the day. What would be more interesting, and I'd still give it to Bob, I think, with who would win a shoot fight between these two. Because Bruno, we all know, was incredibly strong. And that old school bare chested guy, there's stories about Bruno wrestling like a gorilla in a cage for a little bit and stuff, But Backlund was that guy that, they would bring around too if anyone was worried about any trouble going down. Like Backlund could handle it. Very unassuming, but, bad dude.
Yeah, if you talk to people older than us about wrestling, a lot of them up in this area will talk about Bruno Sammartino. Because he was such not only a fixture of WWF wrestling in the 70s, but also that Italian community. And then you go on to Bob Backlund, who it's funny because Bob Backlund is like just before I was watching, but luckily we had the gift of the 90s later run of Backlund. And then, there's a little more footage of older Backlund matches that we can go back and see. I love watching a good Backlund match. Sammartino was more a commentator, if anything, during the 80s.
Yes.
And I always thought he kind of sounded funny. I want to go back and watch some classic Bruno matches, but I mean, I've said it before. I'm such a Backlund fan. If you're a Backlund fan, highly recommend checking out his book. It really details his career well. It was how I found one of my favorite inspirational authors, Napoleon Hill, because he has a Napoleon Hill quote at the beginning of every chapter. And I mean, that just kind of puts it a little over the top for me for Backlund. And we're talking over the top with Backlund, but under the bottom, I don't know how that analogy works, but WWE Evolve debuted this week on Tubi. I was excited to see what the first episode would bring. Dave, were you able to check out any of Evolve?
Just a little bit. I saw that they had some matches on there. I don't know. It just didn't, the atmosphere, it just looked like NXT light. Like, you know, it wasn't even really. Yeah, pandemic NXT, maybe that's a good word for it. I just didn't. I didn't enjoy it. I think sometimes the hype got up for this because of the Evolve name, but you know, at the end of the day, yeah, nothing about it looked like it was going to keep me going.
I felt bad that ladies tag match at the beginning was, I considered it trash. It didn't keep my attention. I like the fact that we're getting to see people that we wouldn't otherwise see. But to me, that match was just so slow paced. It didn't have me pumped. And what I was happy to see is at the end of that event, you had former, not guests of the show, but they have appeared on our channel. Brad Baylor teaming with Ricky Smokes and one other person who, of course, I can't remember their name, but I believe they've teamed as Swipe Right on the Indies. And it was great to see at least Brad Baylor in that main event. I don't have as much of a problem with the environment because it is more of a developmental thing. I don't know if this is what NXT Level Up was like before, but I like the fact that this could be a pipeline for those people from the indies coming in.
I like the concept. I just don't think it's going to be enough to hold my attention with so much wrestling out there.
100%. And we got a comment here. Randy Osga, thank you for tuning in. What wrestler is like Bruno now? That's interesting because my first thought is Miro because I'm thinking body type.
That's funny.
You know, kind of that strongman wrestler. I don't know.
So
that's the best
thing
thing
who popped in my head, and his style is completely different because he's more athletic, obviously. But like you went with Miro, the body type I thought of was Brody King, who popped up in my head. You know,
that's not another bad one. It's really tough because his wrestling style is not going to be similar to anybody from now.
No.
So it's almost kind of like whose body type or whose mannerisms in the ring are close.
I like Miro. I think you were pretty good with that one. That's probably as close as I can think of right now. I'll throw one other one out there. Even though he's more technical, Gunther. Because Gunther's that kind of guy who's going to be able to just chop you, hit you, kick you, and do a lot of stuff that Bruno did, but make it work in today's environment.
Yeah, and in that old school style. Ooh, I almost want to throw out possibly Hank and Tank from NXT. You know, because they're like more stout guys.
This could be someone's coming up.
Energy, but they could take the punishment to you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if anybody, maybe Joe Coffey, one of the members of Gallus, if I had picked somebody else. But thank you for that comment, Randy. And we're going to go on from talking about Evolve to wrestling evolving in the late 80s, early 90s, and Mr. Perfect versus Eddie Guerrero. I saw you put this up as a comparison. I really enjoyed it because I wouldn't have thought to compare them otherwise necessarily. But Mr. Perfect's always held such a high standard because he was big when I was younger. But then when you think about Eddie Guerrero and how good he was, could he have been like the Latin Mr. Perfect in those like mid 90s, early 2000s?
Yeah, I mean, Perfect was about as crisp and technical as you get. I love the presentation. Overall, Eddie's one of those guys on a few select bases, I would say. I'll put over Perfect. It's close, but the thing with Eddie is I feel like Eddie is very sharp in the ring with what he does. Despite being smaller, he's a really good brawler too. I would say you just look at these pictures like, Henning is probably the more believable of the two and better technically, but, it's not like it's just he's light years better than Eddie. But then Eddie can also fly, and Eddie can also do that stuff. And then when you really get down to it, Eddie's one of those guys who kept evolving like on the microphone and personality-wise too. And it's, again, not that Henning was bad at it, but I think Eddie was just a little bit better. So when you size him up, I just feel Eddie edges them out in certain categories a little better. But these are two of the greatest of all time.
I'm going to go with Mr. Perfect too, and it's almost a theme on our show. These guys were so good while battling crippling drug addictions, and we're going to move from talking about that to talking about a crippling wrestling addiction that's going to get solved tonight with AEW Revolution. I'm very excited for this event. I haven't watched the TV week to week very recently, but if there's one thing about AEW, they're going to give you a long pay-per-view and you're going to get quality matches. How many matches are we looking at on this card right now?
Well, as I pull back my notes up here because I had to get out of it for a second, I believe, that is it. With pre-show matches, you are looking at 13. So there are 4. So that means there's 9 on the main card.
Doesn't Tony Khan know that the time the clocks rolled forward last night? Does he even care? What's kicking off the pre-show?
All right. So remember, they're Los Angeles, so they're on West Coast time, so they don't care about us. Pre-show, kick it off. Daniel Garcia and the Undisputed Kingdom, so it's down. Okay, they're going to the list of the Undisputed Kingdom, which is Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, and Kyle O'Reilly versus Shane Taylor Promotions. So Shane Taylor, Carly Bravo, Lee Moriarty, Captain Sean Dean. Yeah. So we got an 8-man tag to open up. What do you think?
If it was Taven and Bennett, I would have definitely been a little more behind it. But I like that the Undisputed Kingdom is moving forward in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm a Daniel Garcia fan, so I got to go Daniel Garcia and the Kingdom.
I will pick them as well. This sounds like a Ring of Honor match. Lee Johnson and Blake Christian versus Commander and Hologram. I'll go with the Luchadors here.
Ooh, that is a really good match. That definitely sounds like a Ring of Honor match. As much as I'd like to see Blake Christian get that win, it's got to be Commander and Hologram. That's going to be a heck of a match. That might steal the pre-show.
All right, Chris Jericho versus Gravity, Ring of Honor Championship. Chris Jericho, this is a gimme.
Yeah, it's going to be Jericho. That match sounds like it's going to fucking suck, though. Like, I'm kind of surprised that's going on the pre-show. I don't know where that's coming from. Maybe I should be keeping up with more ROH.
Yeah. All right. They're back. Your favorite. Big Boom AJ and Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe versus Johnny TV and M&M Collection, Mansoor and Mason Madden. Okay, so this has got to be Cassidy and Briscoe and Big Boom AJ. Big Boom AJ is obviously just for that social media rub, and Cassidy and Briscoe are obviously the stars wrestling-wise here.
I mean, I guess if there was going to be a match to headline the pre-show, I get why they use Big Boom AJ. They definitely they impressed in their first match. They were better than I expected. The real question, because obviously it's going to be Briscoe, AJ, and Orange Cassidy winning, but will the Rizzler be there?
Yes.
The people have to know.
Well, you'll find out. Boom.
Yeah,
Let's talk about.
Let's get to that main card.
Let's get to the main card here. And I don't know if this is going to be the match order, but this is what we're going with. All right. I like this match a lot. I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win, but I like this a lot because I like these personalities. The Tag Championship, the Outrunners, Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum versus the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin. I got to go the Hurt Syndicate all day here, but I think it's too early to take the titles off them. But I got to be honest, like if there was a major upset here, I wouldn't be like too upset because I just love the Outrunners.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun match, but we talked about it earlier. The Hurt Syndicate has been such a great team, and you can't take the titles off them yet, especially not for the Outrunners, because they're a fun team. They're great to see on TV. But do you see the Outrunners? Let's say it wasn't even the Hurt Syndicate. Do you see the Outrunners taking those championships off of anybody?
Not right now, and definitely not Hurt Syndicate. Yeah. All right. Continental Championship, Okada versus Brody King. This should be a lot of fun. But whoever's going to take this title off of Okada has to be built up a lot more because they've invested so much time in him. Okada's not losing here.
100%. This is going to be a great match, but kind of the same boat as the last match. I don't see Brody King taking that title off of Okada.
All right. Mercedes Moné defending the AEW TBS Championship against, and I'll let you correct me if I'm here wrong, Momo Watanabe? What's that?
Momo Watanabe.
Watanabe. All right. Well, not going to win, okay? Mercedes Moné.
Japanese are losing this shit.
It's just, we flew her over for that. Let's just get right to the next one. This is what we made this match. Should be fun, yeah. Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher in a steel cage. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Fletcher, even though everything tells me logically Ospreay will probably win because he's the biggest star. But I just feel like Fletcher. No, I'm gonna go Ospreay because Fletcher's had some momentum against Ospreay already, and he's beaten him before. I think Ospreay's gonna get some of that heat back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Fletcher is going to win, but there's going to be some kind of screwed finish in there.
We'll see what happens. Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet. Speaking of screwed finishes, I'm going to go Ricochet because I think something's going on with Swerve and Nana, and Swerve's not going to be able to get that robe back. And I think that's going to be a problem, and that's got to happen. The only way that happens is if Ricochet wins. So I think Ricochet finds a way to screw him.
I'm right there with you. I'm very much looking forward to this match. These two have wrestled in MLW before. They're going to put on a great match. This might be my match of the night.
Toni Storm, Mariah May. Toni Storm, I think we just brought her back. She just won the title. She's going to keep that momentum going.
100%. This is like some kind of big like Hollywood send-off, or there's some kind of
it's a false count anywhere match.
False count anywhere. All right.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Either way, it's going to be Toni Storm. It's going to be a great way to end this feud. This has been the feud that I would say arguably has carried AEW, at least in my mind. Other people might have seen like the Death Riders and been like, that's what's carrying them through. But I got Toni Storm winning this.
Yeah. Takeshita defending the International Championship against Kenny Omega. This is interesting because they've made a real big deal about Takeshita beating Omega twice already. I don't really see Omega with the International Championship, but maybe I better get used to seeing that because I'm going Kenny Omega.
Kenny Omega is going to be winning this, and it's going to further the feud between them. Who knows? Maybe we have some interaction with Will Ospreay again. But Kenny Omega's taking that title.
All right. Hangman Page and MJF. I'm going to go Hangman Page.
That's interesting because I really feel like it's got to be MJF.
We shall see. I guess it depends on what we're picking for our final match, and that is Cope versus John Moxley for the AEW World Championship. I'm going with Moxley. I say he finds a way. I'm saying Bruno Yuta, who Cope said in the last match this was respect about, and they teased dissension with Yuta and Mox. I don't think so. Yuta's coming out to screw Cope, or Jay White, who's been in Cope's side with all this, will turn around and screw Cope. Either way, something's going to happen to screw over Cope, and John Moxley's keeping that title. And that's why I think Hangman Page is going to end up being the one who wins later. But what do you think?
Interesting. I think that Tony Khan is not going to be able to help himself. And we're going to get the Copeland win. And then we're going to get the Christian cash in right afterwards. And that's going to be the big send off for the night. That's just how I
feel. 1 a.m.
But yeah, it's going to be very late. I'll probably be watching the replay tomorrow. And we're out here talking about the best pay-per-view in the game. But how about the best drink in the game? Game Up Hard Hydration. If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store. Author Ray Lopez presents Lockup, Professional Wrestling in Our World. Lockup dives headfirst into the colorful world of professional wrestling. Explore the iconic characters, careers, matches, history, and families, and delve into the bizarre and fascinating entwining of professional wrestling and film, television, football, politics, gender, and race. Pre-orders are available now on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com. This is the perfect gift for the wrestling fan in your life. Pick up a copy today on Amazon.com or at MascotBooks.com.
Hey, all you goddamn wrestling fans out there, listen, Old Black Bart has got a book. It's called Wrestle. Like that. It's got some dadgum good stories in there about some dadgum good wrestlers.
Read stories of Dusty Rhodes, the Von Erich, Scott Casey, Sergeant Slaughter, Roddy Piper, Mr. Fuji, Ron Bass, Bruiser Brody, Mike Davis, the Grappler, and many others.
And I guarantee you one thing, that it'll be the best dadgum read you've had in a long, long time.
Get your book today at Russellville.com or on Amazon. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.
Hey fans, it's the man they call Dave with producer Joe, and you probably know us as the commentary team for New Heights Pro Wrestling, but when we're not doing that, we got a podcast.
That is the Working Fans Podcast, where we talk pro wrestling, comedy, MMA, and so much more.
And tell them about that signature segment.
Oh, you talk about the 531?
You know I am.
That is a homegrown creation that has been our namesake. And if you want to know our namesake, we got Chevy, AJ Strange Brew, as well as the two of us.
And why don't you go to our channel, like, subscribe, show us some love.
Rate, review, all of it.
Read about the Northern Wrestling Federation in the book presented by Russellville.com, The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 2. Hear the story of Roger Ruffin, the man who trained Carl Anderson, the Monster Abyss, Jordan Clearwater, Chris Harris, and Jillian Hall.
Plus 45 other short stories including Jazz, Bobby Eaton, Kamala, Thunder Rosa, Mario Mancini, Scott Casey, PJ Black, Kerry Morton, Sal Renaro, Jeremiah Plunkett, Colby Carino, Bam Bam Malone, and many others.
Get your book today at Russellville.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.